Hey, today we're going to talk about the national debt the U.S. is in. As of June 2018, America is in debt $21 trillion. To put that into context, if you had $1 trillion in cash, you could buy 333,555 new Bugatti Chirons. Or if you wanted to spend the whole 21 trillion, you can buy 7 million of your friends' one. 1 trillion could also pay a year's salary for 18 million teachers. According to the National Education Association, the average elementary school teacher in the U.S. makes about $55,000. But if you're not a teacher, 1 trillion could pay for 140 billion hours of labor. That's calculated at the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. Crazy. How about this? $1 trillion is enough to hire all 2.8 million residents of the state of Kansas, men, women, and children, in full-time minimum wage jobs for the next 23 years. And if you love basketball, then 1 trillion will buy you the star power of LeBron James for the next 26,000 years. He makes $38 million through his basketball contract. At that rate, 1 trillion will cover the tab for King James for the next 26,000 years. That's a franchise player. Now, to understand the question, how do we get out of debt, we must understand a few things. You have two types of goods. You have a capital good and consumption goods. Consumption goods are what we know as natural resources like land, crops, livestock, water, things of such. Capital goods are items like gold, silver, precious metals, things that are non-renewable. Now, at one point in time, gold was used as an accounting system to keep track of how much gold we had in consumption goods, meaning how much we had in crops or livestock. It was meant to act as an accounting system, which all money systems are used for. Well, what happened after a while when people had gold or silver, they had to find a way to store it safely. If not, someone could easily rob you. That's when the idea of a bank came in. You would turn in your gold or silver or anything that was precious to a bank, and in return you would get a receipt which would note how much you gave the banker. That's why paper money is called a note. All a note is a promise to pay. After a while, people became accustomed to it, and it was easier to use than carrying around a bunch of gold. So the receipt started to represent money, and that's where we get paper currency from. Paper currency can be a part of a stable economy as long as it's backed by gold or silver, which is capital goods. All was well and good, but as time went by, a group of international bankers decided to scheme people out of their capital goods, that being their gold and silver, which is actual money, and in turn get them to accept a fiat money system. In this system, they could print more money than what was actually needed to cause inflation, or take money out of circulation and cause astringency. This is how they manipulate societies. Fiat money is currency that a government has declared to be a legal tender but is not backed by a physical commodity. When you have gold and silver circulating in your society, that allows your money system to be stabilized. When you take the gold out, now the Federal Reserve can establish how much the money is worth because they print the money. When you print money without enough gold or silver backing the money, this is what creates inflation. Inflation is the printing of money without gold or silver backing it, which is real money. When you print more money, you lower the value of the money. That means you have to utilize more money to actually purchase items, which is why prices go up. It's not the value of the item, the value of the money is going down. This all started in the late 1700s. On September 18, 1789, the new Secretary of Treasury, Alexander Hamilton, who some allege acted as the agent of the Rothschild family when he helped create the First National Bank. He entered into negotiations for a temporary loan with the Bank of New York and the Bank of North America, the only two banks in the country at the time. The following February, the deal went through and the government borrowed $19,608. It was the start of the American national debt under the new Constitution. Later on in the 1790s, Alexander Hamilton was the secretary of the First National Bank of America. They had a 20-year charter. The First National Bank was dominated by foreign investors, including the Rothschilds and some other international bankers. That expired in 1811, so Nathan Rothschild ordered the War of 1812 after the charter of the First National Bank was not renewed. So they brought the War of 1812 in, which worked because the international bankers wanted America to renew the charter for the National Bank, which they had control over. So they brought in the Second National Bank in 1816. During the time, Andrew Jackson understood the power of the National Bank and how it was destroying and crippling the American economy, so he pledged to get rid of it. He had a quote from 1832. "The bank, Mr. Von Buren, is trying to kill me, but I will kill it." And of course, he was referring to the Second National Bank of America.
It's pretty fast.
They tried to have him killed, but Jackson shut it down in 1836. It wasn't until the 1860s that the international bankers tried to bring a national bank into America again. But America still did not want a national bank, so they caused a war, what we know as the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln went against the international bankers and was assassinated in the conspiracy involving John Wilkes Booth. After causing wars failed in the 1900s, time went on and the international bankers put together their next move. They tried ways to destabilize the economy, and that's exactly what they did. On December 23, 1913, President Woodrow Wilson passed the Federal Reserve Act. The international bankers got the people to trust in the national bank. One method was by causing bank runs. A bank run is where someone would start a rumor that a bank is insolvent, which by nature all banks are. But when you cause a panic by making the people who deposit money in the bank think the bank doesn't have enough money to cover the amount of money that they deposited. So basically the people will go and they will take their money back out of the bank. And that will cause the banks to call back in the loans they made to the people who purchased houses and things. When the people will go give their money back, that will cause the value of the property that they bought to go down. So the private bankers that was in on it will go buy back all the property that was defaulted on and buy for cheap because the value went down. And that will cause a destabilization in the American economy. So that's what caused the pretext for the Federal Reserve Act from Woodrow Wilson, which he was Confederate with all along. That's why in America we have what's known as the Federal Reserve, which is basically just a private banking institution. The Federal Reserve is a front for the international bankers. It is a private bank, and they can print money there. According to the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Congress cannot print money. They can only coin it. So when Franklin Roosevelt wrote the Executive Order 6102 in 1933 to take all of the gold out of circulation, what he was doing was a big favor for the international bankers. Roosevelt also brought in the Security and Exchange Commission, meaning when you're born, every citizen is given a number, the red number on the birth certificate, and each live birth is reported to be valued at $6,500,000 to $7,500,000 Federal Reserve dollars in collateral from the Federal Reserve. The American Banknote Company is a subsidiary of American Banknote Corporation, and its products range from currencies, credit cards, passports, driver license, and birth certificates. In the USA, citizens have never obtained their original birth certificates. What they possess is a copy. Furthermore, these copies have serial numbers on them, issued on special bank bond paper and authorized by the American Banknote Company. The original birth or naturalization record for every U.S. citizen is held in Washington, D.C., and the property and assets of every living U.S. citizen is pledged as a collateral for the national debt. Hence the saying, we are owned by the system. Literally, if you get incarcerated, the prison number is a bond number. So when people get locked up and put to work, you are performing a service. You are actually on the stock exchange. All a bond is a promise to pay. That bond accumulates value based on what they prognosticate your work value will be. When they give you a social security number, that creates a trust in your name based on the amount of work you do. You cannot touch that money. It is worth in the billions. That gets cycled back into the state economy in what they call block grants. You are worth billions as a human. The energy that you use in your lifetime to work and perform a duty is what's going to pay off the $21 trillion debt. If indeed 317 million U.S. citizens are worth an average at birth of $700,000, that will mean the U.S. is worth roughly $222 trillion. Your birth certificate is really a banknote, which means you, the citizen, are what is known in the stock market as a commodity. You are the actual executor of the promise to pay. You are the collateral to the debt America owes the Federal Reserve. You are the collateral because there is no money. We use something called fiat money, which is just a promise to pay. But the actual money is you. Again, there is no gold or silver backing anything. You are the money. You are the collateral debt. The Federal Reserve Bank is not owned and controlled by the U.S. government. Rather, it is owned and operated by international families. You are owned by foreign bankers, and your physical body is a collateral bond that has been issued on all your future earnings and your children's future earnings. JFK was also aware of the danger of the international bankers. One of the main reasons John F. Kennedy was assassinated was because he wanted to bring back the silver standard. Executive Order 1110 was issued on June 4, 1963. With that, he basically stripped the Rothschild Bank of its power to loan money to the United States federal government with interest. With the stroke of a pen, President Kennedy declared that the privately owned Rothschild Federal Reserve Bank would soon be out of business. He wanted to use silver coins. International bankers was not having it. Once he was removed, the first thing that Lyndon B. Johnson, which would also be his successor after he was assassinated, did was bring back all the silver coins with the Coinage Act of 1965. Everything is about deductions. When you get money back from the IRS, that's based on deductions. It's not a payment. You can say you got paid, but you really got a deduction. There is no such thing as a payment. They cannot pay you. There is no money to pay you. All the gold was sent to the Federal Reserve in 1933. Under the Constitution, the Secretary of Treasury is supposed to pay off everybody's debt because they took away our ability to pay back debt when they took away the gold and silver standard. What you get is a deduction, a promise to pay, a note. That's all the money we use. All you can do is levy a tax. Everything is just a tax. It's not a payment. You cannot pay because you have no money. Everything is just a promise to pay. The Federal Reserve wants to take away your capital goods and leave you with fiat money.
You never know what you're going to get.
Now the question was, how do we get out of debt? Now knowing what we know, we can understand the power the Federal Reserve has. The Federal Reserve must get dissolved, and the legitimizing of actual natural resources as exchangeable money or lawful money, that being gold and silver, is how we get out and stay out of debt. Go to your politicians and demand the removal of the Federal Reserve. The more people who understand that we are debt slaves, the quicker we can do something about it. Thank you for watching. Leave a comment below. Make sure you share and subscribe. Peace.
Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer.